in your automations, are you paying for every single step in the workflow? Are you just paying for each single execution? In this video, I'm going to be ranking n8n versus Zapier and Make so that you do not have to do the guesswork. You're going to see some real data here and understand by the end of this video the costs involved in each and the other factors you'll need to know to make a decision on which integration workflow platform to use. So one main thing about n8n is cost-wise, it's based on a full workflow execution rather than per task execution. So I'm going to show you a diagram, and that's going to help you out here. So if we look at n8n versus Zapier, this is on the n8n website, by the way. I have all of these sources here. I recommend you take a look at these yourself as well. You can see comparisons between Make, Zapier. You can see pricing on n8n's website, Zapier on Make's website, and this is a good Medium article as well. But if we look at this diagram here, we can kind of understand how this is going to work out. So if you have a complex workflow, right, whether you do it in Zapier or you do it in n8n, you'll notice in n8n, this only counts one. All of this only counts once, whereas in Zapier, this could be counted, as 10 or 20 different times. Okay, so that's going to multiply. It won't matter as much when you have like a really small workflow, something that's really simple. But once you get more complex, once you get larger workflows, the price is going to increase significantly when you're using something like Zapier, or even to a certain degree with Make. Okay, so that's kind of a key point as far as pricing. One other thing to keep in mind is on n8n, you also have the option of self-hosting. So you could either use n8n's cloud hosting, which is, going to be kind of the easiest to get set up with really quickly. And same kind of thing with Make and Zapier. However, you have the option of doing self-hosting in n8n. Now that's going to be a big benefit because instead of paying n8n cloud for whatever you're using, you could self-host on something like AWS or on a DigitalOcean droplet. And you can choose your virtual machine and you can see the prices here. Like this one is $24 per month. This one's $48. And keep these in mind because you're going to see, how big of a difference this is between the other platforms. So this is kind of like a quick breakdown here. If you're doing a smaller number of tasks, you can see some of the differences. But I think what will make it even more clear is if we look at 50,000 executions within n8n, and then what would that be within Make? So if we look at the pricing models here, we can see on n8n pricing, if you go with the Pro plan, you can do 10,000 workflow executions. Okay, and just remember, all of this is a single execution in n8n. Okay, so we could do 10,000, or we could even purchase 50,000, which would be $120 a month in n8n. So what would that essentially cost in something like Make? If you do the math here, you'll kind of see like a light workflow. If you only have 3 actions or 3 nodes, it's not going to make that big of a difference. You might, it would be a similar price, maybe even slightly cheaper with Make, but then you'll see once you have a larger number of actions, like 8 actions, 10 actions, 20 actions, this number is going to start to increase, okay? So we just said 50,000, right? 50,000 executions in n8n is $120. This could be, $200, $300 in Make. And then in Zapier, it's going to be even more expensive. So you kind of get the idea here. Basically, the more complex your workflows are, the more cost savings you're going to get from n8n. And then even further if you self-host n8n instead of doing their cloud option. So when it comes to self-hosting, like I said, you could use something like AWS or DigitalOcean Droplet. And you could choose, one of these types of options, like 2 virtual CPUs or 4 virtual CPUs with 8 gigabytes of RAM. So that would be anywhere from $24 to $48 per month. Whereas if you do n8n Cloud, like we saw, $120 for 50,000 executions. So there is quite a bit of cost savings there, even just within n8n itself if you self-host. And certainly n8n can be cheaper with larger, more complex workflows than Make and Zapier. So let's talk about some of the other factors here, because cost is just one factor to keep in mind. It's an important one, but there's other ones as well. So we touched on this, the deployment. Zapier and Make, those are cloud only. They don't really give you the option to self-host, but you do in n8n. As far as ease of use, or when you're first learning it, Zapier is going to be the easiest, and then Make is a little bit more difficult, and then n8n has a stronger or a steeper learning curve. If you do have a development background, I think you're going to appreciate n8n. I would recommend checking out my other video that I just posted. It shows an n8n workflow, and you'll get a better idea of what I'm talking about when I say, this is kind of designed for someone who has a development background. But keep in mind, this is still a low-code tool. n8n is a low-code tool, so you don't actually have to have a development background, but you will get more benefit with something like n8n if you do. Whereas with Zapier, you really don't need any at all. We also talk about customization here. We touched on the pricing models. Scalability is kind of similar to that. If it's developer heavy, n8n is going to kind of win out there. And then as far as integrations, there's quite a bit. So even if we look at the UI, you can kind of see a quick comparison here. This is Make on the right side here, right? You can kind of see what it looks like. It's pretty simple, drag and drop. Now, n8n still does have drag and drop, but you can actually see, some of the data. It looks a little bit closer to code, like JavaScript code. And then if you just want to see, I would recommend also looking at the pricing here. And those are really kind of some of the key components there. If this helped you out, hopefully it helped with clarifying pricing. And if it did, or if you think this is going to save you money, then go ahead and subscribe and click like. And if you have any other topics that you'd like covered, feel free to put those in the comments. And if you'd like any advice or to work together, go ahead and put that in the comments as well. And I'll see y'all next time.